Welcome to The Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the latest from the Boeing company.
That's right.
We're looking at their second quarter 2025 earnings call, the news release, and their 10Q filing.
All the official stuff.
Exactly. Our mission here is really to cut through all that data, give you the essential insights.
The key takeaways.
Yeah, on Boeing's financials, their operational progress across commercial, defense, global services.
And how they're handling everything going on globally, it's a complex picture.
It really is. We're looking for those surprising facts, those moments that might make you say, aha.
And like you said, all our info comes straight from Boeing's official Q2 sources. The call, the release, the filing.
Crucial.
But before we jump into the numbers, I think it's really important we acknowledge something the CEO mentioned right at the start of the call.
Yeah.
He expressed sincere condolences to everyone affected by the Air India Flight 171 incident.
Right.
It's just a somber reminder of the responsibility they carry, isn't it? The human side of this whole business.
Absolutely. Very important point to start with. Okay, with that context, let's unpack the headline story from Q2. Lots of talk about a turnaround. Is that what you're seeing in the big picture?
Well, turnaround is a strong word, but there's definitely a noticeable shift. I mean, look at the revenue, $22.7 billion.
Okay.
That's up 35% compared to Q2 last year. A pretty significant jump.
35% is big. But they still reported a loss, right?
They did. A GAAP loss per share of 92 cents, and the core loss was $1.24 per share.
Okay, so core loss excludes some items, gives a clearer operational view.
Exactly. But even those loss figures, they're much better than the year before, so improvement.
Gotcha. And what about cash flow? That's always critical for Boeing.
Right. And this is interesting. Operating cash flow was actually positive, $0.2 billion.
Positive, okay.
And free cash flow usage was down to $0.2 billion. So they still used a bit of cash, but much, much less than expected. Better than forecast.
So summing that up, revenue up quite a bit, losses are shrinking, cash flow situation is improving. What does that tell you about the company's overall health? Is this recovery plan actually, gaining traction?
I think it strongly suggests it is. Yeah, the plan seems to be taking hold. And you see that reflected in the backlog, too.
The order book.
Huge. It grew to $619 billion by the end of the quarter.
Wow. $619 billion.
Yeah. And that includes over 5,900 commercial planes.
That's a lot of planes. How many years of production is that?
More than 7 years, easily. And for the key programs like the 737 and the 787, they're basically sold out for well into the next decade.
Okay, that level of demand certainly helps.
It absolutely does. So the question becomes, how are they translating this overall momentum into actual progress in the different business units?
Exactly. And usually when we talk Boeing turnaround, all eyes are on commercial airplanes, BCA. Is that where we're seeing the big operational shifts? How's production looking?
You're right. BCA is always under the microscope, and they delivered 150 jets in Q2.
150. How does that compare?
Well, it brings the first half total to 280 planes, and that's actually the best Q2 and first half delivery performance they've had since February 2018.
Since before the MAX grounding and the pandemic, basically.
Pretty much. So it's a real indicator that production is stabilizing. And maybe more importantly, it shows their new quality focus is starting to translate into, more consistent output, rebuilding that delivery trust.
Okay, let's zero in on the 737 program. Obviously, huge scrutiny there after the door plug incident in January 2024. Beyond just the delivery numbers, what are the real tangible improvements you're seeing on the factory floor?
They've been very methodical. They did ramp up the production rate to 38 per month back in May.
Right, 38.
And the big focus now, they keep saying, is demonstrating stability, just holding steady at that rate.
Not rushing the next increase.
Exactly. And critically, on the quality front, they've cut down traveled work. That's the rework done outside the main station by 50%.
50% reduction in that kind of rework. That sounds significant.
It is, because it's a direct measure of getting things right the first time. Fewer things slipping through. They've also simplified, get this, over 1,500 work instruction documents.
Wow. Based on feedback.
Yeah, and implemented structured on-the-job training, directly addressing things that came up in those safety and quality stand-downs they had.
Okay, that sounds like concrete progress on the quality system itself. But the big question is always the rate. Getting production up reliably. What are the next steps, especially with the FAA watching so closely?
So they use these key performance indicators, KPIs, that they've agreed on with the FAA, sort of a dashboard for production health.
Right.
Most of those KPIs are apparently moving in the right direction. But there's one related to rework hours that's still not quite where they want it.
The rework hours KPI.
Yeah. And reducing that is fundamental to the quality push, right? So once they get that sorted, they expect to ask the FAA for approval to go up to 42 aircraft per month.
And when might that be?
They said in the coming months. But they were very clear. Any future rate increases will be small, increments of 5 per month, and no sooner than 6 months apart. Stability over speed, that's the mantra.
That stability over speed really is a shift, isn't it? Reflects lessons learned. But it does make you wonder, can the airlines wait? Will demand just keep outpacing this slower, steadier supply ramp?
That's the big question for the whole industry, really.
Okay, but sticking with the 737 for a moment, what about those delayed variants, the MAX 7 and MAX 10, and the planes built for China? Any movement there?
Yeah, some updates. The 737-7 and NAGAS 10 certifications, those are now expected sometime in 2026.
2026, just back again.
Seems so, mainly due to the engine anti-ice fix taking longer than they thought.
Okay. Does that mess up their production plans overall?
They say no, not materially. They're ready to swap in other MAX models for those customers if needed. And on the China front, those roughly 737-8s built before 2023.
Yeah.
Rework is done. They expect to deliver them in Q3.
This quarter.
Yeah. And they're actually shutting down that shadow factory they used for the rework. Kind of a symbolic step towards normal operations.
Interesting. Okay, moving beyond the 737. The Dreamliner, the 787, also had its share of production halts and issues. How's that program looking now?
The 787 seems to be in a better place, definitely improved stability. They increased the production rate to 7 per month.
7 a month now?
Yep. And similar to the 737 approach, they're focused on stabilizing at 7 before prepping for the next increase.
Makes sense. Any rework backlog there?
Similar story again. About 15 Dreamliners built pre-2023, including some for China, have had rework completed. Deliveries are expected through this year and next.
Okay. And the big one, the next-gen wide-body, the 777X. Any news?
Flight testing is just continuing. They said no new technical issues, which is good. Over 1,400 flights, 4,000 hours logged.
Solid progress on testing.
Yeah, and production has started on the first 777X8 freighter. They just drilled the first hole in the wing spar, apparently.
Any change to delivery timelines? Still looking pretty far out.
No change reported. First 777-9 passenger jet still slated for 2026. The NG-8 freighter in 2028. And the NG-8 passenger version not before 2030.
Wow, 2030 for the passenger NG-8. Okay, so BCA seems to be methodically putting pieces back together. Let's talk about a big strategic piece. The Spirit AeroSystems acquisition. What's the latest, and why is this deal so important for Boeing?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. This isn't just about bringing a supplier back in-house. It's about gaining direct control over a massive, vital part of their production system, particularly the 737 fuselage.
To prevent future quality issues, basically.
Exactly. It's a move to de-risk their whole pipeline, improve quality oversight right at the source. So the latest is they entered the agreement to acquire Spirit. All-stock deal valued around $4.7 billion.
What?
Spirit stockholders approved it. Now it just needs regulatory approvals.
Right, the antitrust hurdles.
Yeah, and also contingent on Airbus buying the Spirit bits that make Airbus parts. That has to happen too. Closing expected later this year.
And Boeing's been propping Spirit up financially too, haven't they?
They have provided significant liquidity support, over $1 billion outstanding. And they've even pushed back repayment dates for some of that into 2026, shows just how vital Spirit's stability is to Boeing right now.
Really underscores the strategic importance.
Yeah.
Okay, so commercial is stabilizing, Spirit deal is moving. Let's pivot. What about defense, space and security, BDS? How's that side of the house contributing, especially with everything going on globally?
BDS actually had a surprisingly strong quarter. Revenue hit $6.6 billion.
Up how much?
Up 10% year over year, and operating margin was 1.7%. Not huge, but positive.
And orders. Defense orders are key.
Very strong. They booked $19 billion in new orders in Q.
$19 billion.
Yep. Pushed their total defense backlog up to $74 billion. And interestingly, 22% of that backlog is from non-U.S. customers.
Reflects the global demand, I guess.
Definitely reflects the current global threat environment driving demand for defense products.
Any specific program highlights showing that strength?
Yeah, a few key ones. The MQ-25 Stingray drone, the Navy tanker drone, started ground testing.
Yeah.
That moves it a big step closer to first flight, which is a major milestone for that program.
Big deal for unmanned refueling.
Absolutely. Then the T-7A Red Hawk trainer. They finalized a deal with the Air Force to build 4 production representative jets and they hit 5 program milestones, so progress there.
Okay.
And they delivered 5 KC-46 tankers. Those tankers are really proving their worth in global operations lately.
Seems like that program's finally hitting its stride after early issues.
It does. And the Air Force even signaled they might just sole source the next batch of KC-46s directly from Boeing. Big vote of confidence.
That is significant. What about the space side?
A major win there, too.
Yeah.
A $2.8 billion contract from the U.S. Space Force.
For what?
For 2 satellites for resilient nuclear command and control comms in space. Highly strategic stuff. Shows their strength in national security space.
And the budget environment looks favorable, too.
It does. That recent U.S. reconciliation bill, it boosts defense spending by $150 billion through fiscal 29. That provides a solid funding runway for a lot of these key Boeing programs.
So a pretty positive outlook for defense overall. Any leadership changes or maybe potential headwinds we should be aware of?
On leadership, Steve Parker was named the permanent CEO for BDS. Brings some stability there as they continue recovery efforts on certain programs.
Okay. Headwinds.
Well, there's a potential labor issue. The Machinists Union, District 837 down in Missouri.
Oh, builds what?
They build the fighters, like the F-15 and F-A-18, and munitions. About 3,200 employees. They rejected a contract offer.
Ooh.
And authorized a strike, potentially starting as early as August 4th.
Just days away, potentially.
Right. Boeing says they expect to manage through it, but, you know, a strike is always disruptive. Something to watch.
Definitely. Okay, let's round out the segments with Boeing Global Services, BGS. This part of the business always seems like a steady performer. What's the story there?
Yeah, BGS just keeps delivering. Another strong quarter, $5.3 billion in revenue. Up how much? Up 8% year over year. But the real eye-opener is the operating margin, 19.9%.
Wow, nearly 20% margin. How?
Driven by, well, favorable performance, a good mix of business, and there was a one-time gain in there too. But fundamentally, both their commercial and government services businesses maintain double-digit margins consistently.
That's impressive. Provides a nice cushion, I imagine.
Absolutely. It's a reliable profit engine that helps offset volatility elsewhere, especially in BCA production cycles.
Can you give some examples of what BGS actually does that contributes to this?
Sure. On the government side, they delivered the first P-8 Subhunter aircraft with new enhanced anti-submarine tech to the Navy.
Oh.
And they won a contract to provide P-8 training systems to South Korea. On the commercial side, think aftermarket, they just opened their third parts distribution center in Germany.
Expanding the parts network.
Exactly. It's their 9th global location, crucial for getting parts out quickly, keeping planes flying, capturing that growing services market.
And speaking of strategy, they're actually selling off some BGS assets too, right? Streamlining.
Yes, that's a big move. They're selling parts of their digital aviation solutions business.
Which includes?
Jeppesen, the navigation charts people know, and ForeFlight, the flight planning app.
Big names. Who's buying?
Thoma Bravo, the private equity firm, for $10.55 billion.
$10.5 billion. Wow.
Yeah, huge valuation. Expected to close this year, result in a significant gain for Boeing, and it lets BGS focus more sharply on their core, profitable, long-term stuff like parts, maintenance, training.
Makes strategic sense. Focus on the core strengths.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've looked at the segments. Let's pull back again. What about the macro environment, trade, supply chains, and that all-important internal culture change Boeing keeps talking about?
Well, the global trade picture is still, dynamic, constantly shifting.
And Boeing's right in the middle of it.
Absolutely. As a top U.S. exporter, something like 80% of their commercial deliveries go outside the U.S. So they're deeply invested in free trade, constantly watching policy, trying to mitigate tariff impacts.
Any recent positives on that front?
Yeah, those recent deals between the U.S. and the EU and the bilateral with the U.K., those helped ease some tensions in aerospace trade. That's good news.
But still, challenges remain. Specific areas.
For sure. Input tariffs haven't been as bad as maybe initially feared, but they're still watching negotiations with Italy, the outcome of the revisited USMCA trade deal.
And China, presumably.
Always. The U.S.-China relationship is a constant watch item. Potential for retaliatory tariffs is always there. Though, as we mentioned, China did restart taking deliveries in June after that brief pause.
Okay, how are they managing inflation and pricing and all this?
Mostly leveraging the really strong market demand right now to manage their pricing and offset some of that cost growth from inflation and supply chain snags.
Speaking of supply chain, are those issues easing? Are they still a bottleneck for the production ramp-up?
They continue to manage the pressures, but interestingly, Boeing feels the near-term supply chain isn't really a constraint for the MAX ramp right now.
Why is that?
They built up buffer inventory, so they have some parts on hand to smooth things out for now.
Got it. Okay, and internally, that cultural shift,
Yeah.
is it more than just talk?
They're certainly emphasizing it heavily, talking about a significant change. They've rolled out new company values, new behaviors,
Like what?
focused on safety, quality, transparency, and they say employees are embracing it. They've also changed their performance management system,
How so?
trying to strengthen accountability, tie performance reviews and development directly to these new values, really embedding it or trying to.
Instilling that safety and quality first mindset deep down.
That's the goal. It's a long process, obviously.
And any leadership changes tied to this phase.
Well, the CEO gave a pretty significant shout out to Brian West, the outgoing CFO.
Right, he's leaving.
Yeah. Praised him for his work over the past 4 years, stabilizing things, navigating the recovery. Jay Malavi is coming in as the new CFO.
Smooth transition plan.
Seems so. Brian West is staying on for a bit as a senior advisor. Suggests a planned handover in a really critical role.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive, it really paints a picture of a Boeing that's, well, showing real, tangible signs of recovery. Wouldn't you say?
I think so. Driven by getting operations more stable, some key strategic wins on defense and services, and this very deliberate, maybe sometimes slow, focus on quality and culture.
And the leadership sounds optimistic about the long.
They do. That goal of hitting $10 billion in free cash flow eventually, they still see it as achievable. Not a question of if, they say, but when.
And near term, what's the cash flow expectation for the rest of 2025?
They expect Q3 cash flow usage to be pretty similar to Q2, so still slightly negative, but then turning positive on free cash flow in Q4.
Ending the year positive overall.
Leading to, what they called a reasonable positive free cash flow for the full year 2025, maybe around $3 billion positive.
Okay, a definite improvement trajectory.
Indeed. Which brings us to a final thought, perhaps. As Boeing works so methodically now to increase production rates, really sticking to this stability over speed idea, what does that commitment actually mean for the wider aerospace industry? Its ability to meet this absolutely surging global demand for new planes.
Right, with those huge backlogs.
Exactly. What are the unforeseen ripple effects this slower, more deliberate pace might create for airlines, for suppliers, and ultimately for travelers worldwide?
Stability versus speed and the global consequences.
Yeah.
Definitely something to mull over.
Until our next deep dive,